All right, well, hello everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for this panel on the role of the voluntary carbon market in meeting net zero targets. This panel is part one of a two-part series where we're looking at the supply side of the equation, so bringing high integrity credits to the market. My name is Amy Zell. I'm the Technical Director for Voluntary Carbon Markets at IETA. I suspect most of you are IETA members, but for those of you who are not familiar, IETA is a nonprofit membership association focused on policy advocacy, implementation of effective carbon pricing systems, and general carbon market intelligence. So in my role, looking at all things voluntary, I can tell you that high integrity supply of credits is a hot button topic. It feels like we've been trying to crack the nut on high integrity credits for a while now, and I'm looking forward to the discussion with our panelists about the progress that we've made, because we have made progress. The panelists will be discussing the current levels of integrity of credits in the voluntary carbon market and how corporates can identify those high integrity credits, including from the guidance from ICVCM, the Integrity Council for Voluntary Carbon Markets. We'll do our best with the acronyms, no promises. There's too many. All right, so quick note on structure. Like all the other panels, we want to hear from you, the audience, so we will be leaving a lot of time at the end for your questions, and Rachel will be running around with the microphone. Thank you very much. But first, let me introduce our panelists and hear their opening remarks. So next to me, we have Derek Six, the Chief Operating Officer at ClimeCo. Next to him is Pedro Barata, the Associate Vice President, Carbon Markets and Private Sector Decarbonization at EDF. I don't know how you fit that onto a business card. Pedro is also the co-chair of the expert panel at the Integrity Council for Voluntary Carbon Markets. Last but not least, we have Benoît, Clément, the Director for Financial Innovation at Verra. But Derek, take it away. Share some thoughts on high integrity supply.
Okay, thank you very much, Amy. I guess I'll start out by giving a very brief kind of set the stage, what it's like to be a project developer 2023-24, and then maybe a couple comments on quality from our perspective. 2023 was a rough year to be a project developer. I think that there were an amazing number of challenges that all were coming together. I tell people it felt a little bit like project developers were in a boxing ring and just kind of getting pummeled from all sides. We had low prices in the voluntary market, which made it tough to implement new projects. We had interest rates rising that disincentivized speculators or secondary participants in the market, so they kind of dumped all their supply of credits onto the market, and demand was low. We had a lot of negative press. We had a lot of policy interventions that dealt with the voluntary markets. So in California, in the EU, a green claims ban, just a lot of, I felt like there's a lot of pressures coming from a lot of different directions. And also, maybe one thing I hope we get to touch on later is, it felt like project developers and registries and programs were being asked in 2023 more and more to be more than a ton of reductions. You know, so that there were additional expectations placed on the credits that maybe weren't initially expected in the market. I think, and also, I mean, so on the buyer side, I think that it was a tough year because buyers were kind of pummeled by lawsuits. They were attacked with claims of greenwashing if they'd purchased credits, and maybe most importantly, they were asked to take responsibility for the credits that they had bought in a way that I thought was kind of amazing. You know, that they were asked to be doing extraordinary levels of diligence, and if something negative happened at the project, it was as though a buyer of a credit had been assigned blame for that activity that they had no participation in and maybe no knowledge of, probably no knowledge of. But on the bright side, all of that negative story may not really reflect the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground was that voluntary retirements of credits in 2023 were up. And actually, as of March 18th, when I did this data check, retirements are up 20% year-to-date 2024 versus 23. So positive momentum continues, and so end buyers are participating in the market. The voluntary market is, it sounds weird, strong in a way, and very weak in a lot of other ways. On quality, just a couple thoughts on the question of quality generally from a project developer's perspective. So I've always actually rejected the idea that there's a systemic quality or integrity problem in the voluntary market when you're talking about credits from the 4 major registries. I actually think that there's really good, capable registries out there that have a long track record. They have great experience. They put together good technical panels. They have public comment periods. They have the third-party verification. They have everything in place, I think, to ensure a good project. I think where things start to fall apart, and I'm struggling with how to make this problem reconcilable. But where things, I think, fall apart from our perspective is a project can list and undertake its activities and follow every letter of every rule in a protocol, as that protocol exists at the time that you enter into this kind of contract to do these activities. And that's the developer's perspective. They expect to be able to follow a known set of rules for a period of time and recoup an investment and maybe, hopefully, a return, and then be able to redeploy that capital in new projects. And that's how we attack climate change, hopefully. But today, it seems like the quality question is one that's being applied post hoc. People are coming and writing an article about projects and saying, well, these 3 projects that started 6 years ago, now we think that there's new science and maybe it's not actually a ton, maybe it's not achieving what it said it would. And then we start throwing words around like junk and worthless. And I understand that perspective. It's absolutely fine to have ratings agencies who will rate projects and say what they're achieving. It's fine to have press looking at the effectiveness of projects. I don't know how to reconcile those two sort of opposing views. The market wasn't really built and can't be built on a post hoc kind of analysis. But at the same time, that's what we have, and so I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't have answers for you, just that's my confusion as a developer.
No, I appreciate that, and I understand the pressures that you're hearing from the stakeholders and also the responsibility of the registries, or the programs, rather. But maybe from a high level, what role or responsibility does the project developer have in ensuring high integrity credits?
I think our role starts before the project. I think ClimeCo and many other project developers are anxious and active to be involved with the continuous improvement of methodologies at registries. We all sit on technical working groups. We try to improve things. We want the protocols to be updated with the latest science and to reflect the very best that we can do. When we design the project, I think that this question of quality on this panel does go to what additional responsibilities should project developers and other parties in the market have beyond what the protocol says we have to do. Should we have others? And if so, could we know what those are? Maybe ahead of time.
Clear communication, yes. Thank you for those remarks. Pedro, we'd like to pass to you for some opening comments.
So hi, everyone. Yep, I mean, I don't know much what to say at this stage because I'm just thinking through so many things here that I've heard at NACW. I think if I look back at the last, I've only been engaged in the voluntary carbon market, to be honest, the last 2.5, 3 years. I mostly did compliance markets for 25 years before that. I have a different view from Derek. I think the carbon market is, the voluntary carbon market has been pummeled to the point of, people even discussing whether there is a role for a voluntary carbon market. Through, and we all know this, through a very aggressive campaign against the voluntary carbon market over the last 1.5, 2 years. And to be honest, there would not have been an integrity council for the voluntary carbon market if there was not a shared perception across many people that there is an integrity issue. So perception or not, we have to deal with it. Having said that, I honestly believe in the, let's say somebody called it the motto of ICVCM in a different panel just now, that if you build integrity, scale will follow. We are now at a very low level of action in the voluntary carbon market internationally because of all of this controversy. And if we can shore up the confidence of a lot of different agents in the market that yes, there are problems, yes, there are issues, but we are confident that we can solve them. And to date, I'm still confident that all of the problems that we've identified regarding integrity are solvable and in the short term. Then that scale will follow. And we need that scale because quite honestly, in many different contexts, and I'm coming from Europe, I'm looking at mostly an American audience here. In an American audience, there is not a single American that I've spoken to that thinks that there's a compliance market coming anytime soon. So the voluntary carbon market is our best hope of immediate action at scale. So I think there are, if I look at right now, we're in March 2024, and I look at the evolution over the last 6 to 9 months, I'm starting to see quite some rays of optimism in the market that come with the fact that we're seeing more cohesion around some guidance that's coming. Also a lot more, say, frank acknowledgement of the shortcomings of past, or let's say of the past performance of in the voluntary carbon market. And so that reckoning that the market players are having, plus the integrity initiatives, and I can talk to those, I think is starting to get that sense of we're turning things around. Now, we're not there yet, and there's a lot still to be done, but I'm reasonably optimistic.
Yeah, thank you for those remarks. And I'm picking up on a theme between the two of you around continuous improvement. I think something we'll touch on more. But Benoît, I would like to pass to you for your opening remarks.
Thanks, Amy. Continuing on that, adding more color to the background, we see how in the beginning it was really about focusing on getting private sector capital moving into this space, taking climate action. And we've developed solutions to help ourselves be able to move in that direction. And now that we've picked up significant momentum, we're now reaching this point where it's like, okay, now we have to ensure the robustness of the methodologies that are here that are supporting this action. And now with all this time that's passed, we've got this opportunity to continue using all of our experiences in the time that has passed to shore up the strength, the quality of these methodologies, the standards, and this sort of pendulum swing of going back and forth of creating more momentum, solving the issues, moving on. It's this growth that's not really linear. It's this continuous journey that continues. So I think this journey that we're on, integrity isn't this binary condition of like, is it met, is it not met? It's this act of continuous improvement, and the crediting programs came into existence to help the market understand what that base level of integrity and quality is, and that's why we exist, today. And it's going to be exciting to see how we continue to use the things that we learn as technologies and our audience continues to provide us with insights, how we can be able to improve the ways in which we do things so we can continue spurring more climate action in a meaningful way.
Yeah, indeed. And again, continuous improvement and the constant need to improve quality. We know Verra has been hard at work on this over the last year, so maybe could you share some thoughts on what some of the changes have been year over year since the last NACW?
Yeah, well, we've seen how there's been a lot of media controversy. We can start there.
To say the least.
Yeah, and we've also seen how the ICVCM assessment framework was created, and that assessment has begun. This is really exciting for all of us. And at Verra, we're in the process of actually, we had the consolidation of our RED methodologies, which has been a huge development for us. We're also undergoing a massive amount of digitalization. We've got anything from like digitalizing methodologies to implementing DMRV and doing some pilots so we can have that project data move into our systems, provide us with more transparency of the actions that are taking place on the ground. We've made updates to our programs recently and continue to have these periodic updates on social and environmental safeguards, which is really important, making sure that there's no intentional or unintentional harm done to the people or the environments in which these projects are taking place. So yeah, a lot of really positive things that are taking place right now, and as we continue learning and getting the feedback, this is how we want to continue improving ourselves over time.
Thank you for that. One thing that I'm noticing in this conversation is we're using the words quality and integrity interchangeably. Is that intentional? Is there a difference between the two? Pedro, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. I mean, oftentimes it looks like they're interchangeable. For the sake of argument, I would say, put it this way, quality is what you want to assess at the end of a process. Integrity is how you assess the process itself. So in looking, for instance, at the guidance that the ICVCM, the assessment framework that has been established, we're not just looking at what a credit is and how good it is, but also how it was made, put it this way. So we're looking at a lot of different things regarding the governance of the programs, the tracking, the transparency that the programs are providing, etc. Now, these do not necessarily have a material impact on the quality of what the program is issued, but they speak to the integrity of the whole process that delivers that. And oftentimes the criticism is leveled not just at the particular accrediting project, but the fact that there is not enough transparency regarding certain registries or certain features that people want to look into, and that is not being provided by the programs. And I just wanted to, because Benoît mentioned the assessment framework, I hope I'm not violating any confidentiality within ICVCM to say that, as you probably know, we're already in the process of assessing programs that have applied to the ICVCM. And we're happy to, that's been told already, the vast majority, 98% of the credits in the market are covered, or put it this way, the 4 programs that have applied to us cover 98% of the current market. So Verra is well known, is one of them. What we're seeing is, even before applying to be accredited, so to speak, by the Integrity Council, the programs have themselves already taken on, they've done their homework. They've looked at the assessment framework. And we're seeing positive developments in that part, let's say the integrity of the process, that are driven by, hopefully not just by the application process to the ICVCM, but also because of that. So to me, that's really let's say a nice achievement already that we can bag into this process, is that we are seeing improvements in the integrity and the transparency of the carbon crediting programs. So I want to dispel the myth that this is a harsh regulator. We hope that we all will be tough, but we also want to acknowledge that we're working with very good applicants that are very responsive and doing their part of the work.
Yeah, I think that picks up on a broader theme as well of you can't pinpoint it and say it's a project developer's responsibility or a program's responsibility. It really is along the entire value chain of a carbon credit to ensure that credit is high quality.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to shift us to a conversation around pricing. This picks up on some interesting conversations yesterday around standardization of credits and price versus quality and how that may be perceived. So Derek, I wanted to ask, can you speak to any pricing trends in the voluntary market, and are you seeing a correlation between price and quality?
It's a tough question. I'm actually going to say no to our price and quality correlated. I don't think we've seen that. I think we've seen prices be impacted by, is this credit likely to be accepted in the CORSIA program? Is this credit likely to be accepted in Singapore's tax program in lieu of a tax payment? Is it likely to go into a Washington state program? Is it fungible in some compliance programs? That's a major price driver. I think the price differences in the market that we see are buyers' reactions to different types of pressures that they have or different types of interests that they have. So, hopefully buyers purchase credits in the voluntary market that are aligned with the goals of their stakeholders and their values and and maybe it's related to a community that they want to buy credits in that community. They're getting all kinds of mixed signals about should I buy removals or not removals, which is better. If I'm buying removals, should they be nature-based or should they be kind of a direct air capture or biochar, something like that? So there's all these mixed signals, and I think mostly buyers are just really confused. And if the goal was to destroy the voluntary market by confusing everybody into total inaction, we're totally there. It's done. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them at this point. It's really tough.
Yeah. I call it the race to the top. Everyone's trying to differentiate their credits and their service offering, and in doing so, they're inherently putting down everything that's not what they're offering. And I'm not convinced that that's helping us.
That's right. The voluntary market has been a bit of a circular firing squad the last 2 years. And maybe we should try to see if we can't find a way to respect each other's different types of projects and work, and realize that if we really want to keep our feet out of the water, and I mean this very literally in San Francisco or where I live in Florida, if we want to keep our feet out of the water, we need to do all of the above. And this circular firing squad against different types of projects or activities has been, we haven't accomplished much in the last 16 years that I've been doing this.
Yeah,
So.
everything, everywhere, all at once.
Yeah.
Yes, we need it all. Pedro, did you have any thoughts on the correlation between quality and price?
I'll start by saying that as EDF, we're just interested about quality and not so much about price. Obviously, we would love a well-functioning market is a market where quality is rewarded and sees better prices. We've seen a little bit like what Derek has said. To give you just one example, we've heard within ICVCM, we hear that the what some people in the market would see as the most likely project types to get eventually CCP labels are already carrying a premium. I can't vouch for that. I don't know what that means. I'd also warn about betting on what exactly will get a CCP credit right now. But what I would say is that, theoretically, yes, absolutely, different levels of quality and different gradings of quality should get a premium. But at the same time, we should not see that as, or that price differentiation as inherently bad. We need all kinds of credits. We don't just need the very top higher level integrity credits. We need credits that provide different kinds of co-benefits. So the theory of change with Integrity Council, for example, is not that a CCP label is the absolute single standard of quality. It's actually a threshold above which there will be gradations. There will be different types of attributes that different buyers will want. Some buyers are more interested in removal, some buyers are more interested in reductions. That is the beauty of the market, if you want.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And since we're on the topic, anything you can share about when we'll see those CCP labels?
I'd imagine that would come. So the next board meeting is in about a week and a half, and we are hoping to see the first program level and category level approvals at that board meeting. And the chair has been quite adamant that we will be as transparent and as quick in reporting our decisions. Now, don't get your hopes high for a massive inflow of CCPs just in a week or so, but my hope, and that we're working to that schedule, is that the vast majority of the existing credits will be looked at over the next 3 months. So we should be in good stead to, by summer, have a flow of CCP credits.
Terrific. We know that's a heavy lift, but I would speak for many in the room when we say we're keen to see it. So thank you for that update.
I didn't know that.
All right, Benoît, we had an interesting conversation as we were prepping for this panel around the role and responsibility that the market has in advancing social or community or equity impacts associated with carbon credits. So how does this factor into the quality discussion? And is the carbon market the best tool to advance these efforts?
Carbon markets are a tool. They're not the only tool, but it's still a valuable one. And if it's in our toolbox, let's go ahead and use it. Under our VCS program, we require that project contribute to at least 3 different SDGs. There's certainly an element to the sustainability of these projects being impacted in terms of their longevity and success. The more social and environmental benefits that you can attach to that. Kind of coming back to that pricing and quality thing, like we are noticing that generally speaking, we're seeing premiums being fetched when there's additional labels, additional impact certifications attached to the carbon credits themselves. Yeah, I mean, with Verra's CCB and SD Vista labels, we're continuing to explore opportunities where we can enhance the social and environmental benefits that are brought into these projects, and through that have greater success and longevity, greater permanence for these projects, and at the same time bring more capital to those communities and the developers to help them with the good work that they're doing. It's an exciting time because there's a lot of new thinking that's happening in these spaces and new technologies that are allowing us to quantify and monitor these items. And it's going to be curious to see how different sorts of interests are going to evolve around these new offerings that are going to be coming online. It'll be interesting to see how that also plays into the pricing and how the market decides to evaluate those efforts as well.
Indeed, yeah, thank you for that. Pedro, Derek, any thoughts on that?
Well, first, at EDF, we strongly believe that community-led, community-driven projects or projects that award essential benefits and income to communities should deserve a higher price and therefore should be identified. Within ICVCM, just going back to the ICVCM, there's a couple of things that we're doing. One is we haven't yet started, but we do hope to develop what we call attributes, so separate tags for particular types of credits that deliver substantial sustainable development impacts. Bear with us, we already overworked in terms of our agenda, but that is the hope, that we will develop these separate tags, and we will obviously build on a lot of the work that has already been undertaken by various programs and various different tagging systems for that. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is that we are very much conscious of the need to engage indigenous peoples and local communities, and therefore we are put together an IPLC forum, and we have now on the board of ICVCM some of these representatives, as well as on the expert groups that are doing some of the assessment and some of the continuous improvement that we want. We need to engage these groups from the ground up in the new, what some people call the VCM 2.0, because we need to start walking the walk that this is the market that provides for this type of benefits. And just the last thing, the next line of attack, in my personal view, and this is very personal, the last line of attack on the voluntary carbon market is going to be around the perception, if you want, that there's a lot of talk about benefit sharing, revenue sharing, incomes trickling down to local communities, and yet it only takes one bad project, one project that did not deliver on that, and from an unsavvy public, that is an indictment that will be on the entire market. So I'm really hoping that we can actually get ahead of ourselves in a way and kind of prevent that flow of negativity yet again.
I hear you. Derek, any thoughts from a project developer on how these community benefits tie into the discussion around quality? Can you have a high quality credit if there are no co-benefits?
Yes, absolutely resoundingly yes. I think that the issues that were brought up by Benoît and by Pedro about respecting indigenous land rights, respecting communities, providing benefits, I think they are critical points of discussion for nature-based projects in particular, and maybe some other types of projects, but especially nature-based projects. But I also think we should make sure that we have a bar here where it is okay for a project to achieve 1 ton of emission reductions. That's why we're all here, and that should be okay. And so there are many industrial projects, landfill gas projects, I might argue, that yes, there are some benefits. There's some local job creation. There might be some improvement in local air quality in some cases, but it's a bit of a bending exercise to try to find a lot of SDGs attached to a landfill gas project. Does that mean we shouldn't do them? No, they're wonderful projects. They're quite easy to monitor and quantify. All kinds of industrial projects are quite easy to monitor and quantify. They're probably the most certain types of reductions. So I think while we want to be sure that we are meeting our promises where there are promises to communities, we should be fulfilling those with great integrity, right? Meeting the expectations. But I don't think there always have to be that promise. I think it can be a project that just reduces a ton.
Let me just clarify, absolutely on the same page. Where promises are made, they should be kept. But I'm absolutely on the same page that the primary purpose of the voluntary carbon market will in the end be solving the climate crisis. That's the best thing that we can do for everyone in the planet, and that includes the IPs and LCs. At the same time, if you're, and I agree, an industrial project doesn't necessarily have to scrutinize the same way with regard to community benefits, but the market for everyone suffers from the same controversy. Because once you start having a controversy about nature-based projects around these this lack of integrity on some of the promises, the whole market, as has happened with other types of issues, the whole market gets tainted. Yeah. We all lose from it.
I agree. That's when I mentioned the circular firing squad. I mean, we are, as project developers, as registries, as program participants, as supporters of projects, we're all in the same boat, and we're shooting holes in our own boat when we do this.
Fair enough. Okay, I have one more question for the panelists, but could I get a quick show of hands if you were thinking of asking a question? Okay, so there are a few out there. Perfect, lovely. All right, so then I saw 4 hands, so somewhat quickly, if you will. What are you most excited about for 2024 when it comes to quality credits? We'll go down the line.
CCP labels.
Derek?
What am I most excited about?
You could take the easy way out and just say CCP labels as well.
No, I can't say that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, that wouldn't be the answer. My answer would be I'm most excited, or at least optimistic, about having more clarity by the end of the year. I think if we all came out of 2024 feeling that there was clarity in what types of projects could be developed, what types of claims buyers should make, what they should be focusing on, what we're going to do, how the registries are going to operate, how we're going to improve protocols. If we felt more clear, that would be a win.
Mm-hmm.
What Derek said.
Yeah.
No, I mean, just to compliment, I do think that, I'll be seen as I'm on the ICVCM expert panel. It's difficult for me to speak ill of our product, but this way. There's a lot, I know, because I've just perceived that there's a lot of anxiety and hope pinned on the CCP labels, and that's fair enough. I just want to give a word of caution here that even if the CCP labels land with, awe and admiration for Pedro Barata and his crew, it will still not be the single point where we turn this around. Because just as Derek has said, there's a lot more confusion, for example, on the demand side. What do we do with these credits? What can we plausibly claim? Is there something that we can plausibly claim towards a target in 2025 or 2026 rather than a target in 2050, right? We have not been, to put it very bluntly, we've not been well served by the initiatives that are doing target setting in providing that clarity up to now. So I think there's a role or there's a lot of thinking yet to be put into providing something that is simple, clear, and practical for buyers to engage in, for corporates to engage in terms of what they can claim in terms of corporate purchases of carbon credits.
And hopefully we can get some more cohesion around that as well. Well, thank you very much. It is now up to the audience to try and get Rachel's attention to get the mic to ask your question. And please, if you wouldn't mind saying your name and your organization.
Brandon Pike, our company's called Eco Restore. We're environmental contractors. We implement nature-based projects, reforestation projects. And I want to just play off some, Pedro, the question I had in mind you just touched on, and Derek, I want to ask you for some color on this if you don't mind. A lot of what we've talked about, or what y'all have talked about, has to do with the supply side, right? How we, about quality and integrity and standards and all those things that are very important on the supply side of the equation, but a market has two sides, right? So I'm just curious, what do you hear, Derek, as a project developer on the demand side? I mean, what are the concerns of potential buyers? What are they looking for? Are they looking for scale? Is it quality, integrity? What are the, just talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, buyers are scared for their reputations when they buy credits. They're scared of just having their name on an article that says this project received a bad review from someone, and by the way, some of the people who retired credits were, Acme Company, and then Acme Company says, oh my gosh, I've been tagged with being involved in something that's perceived to have a low quality. So there's that reputational risk. There's the reputational risk of some of the really negative articles that I don't put in the quality category because these things are just crimes are inexcusable, but I mean, there's been some really bad articles, right? And being tagged is part of that. If there's any illusion that you somehow supported that or knew, or that's a disaster, right? So they're confused about the reputational issues and scared about that. They're confused about the voluntary claim that they can make. We touched on that. The EU has said, well, you can't say. Just about, there's a lot of words in there that you can't say, but you can't be carbon neutral. You can't be net zero if you're doing this through purchasing using offsets. So they're scared about the claim. They're scared about some of the standards that they submit to. So there's we said no acronyms, but there's this CDP, the Carbon Disclosure Project, SBTI, a Science-Based Targets Initiative, and there are companies that, good for them, are really committed to voluntarily reporting their emissions and voluntarily setting targets to reduce them. And now they're being told, well, maybe some credits apply and maybe some types don't, and maybe they apply but only for this amount of years, and maybe they don't later, and so they don't even know what to do with the credits. So it's a tough situation on the demand side. It really is.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. A very interesting discussion. And my name is Takashi Hongo, Mitsui Global Studies Institute. I'm interested in a comment of the Pedro on quality and price. So you touch upon co-benefit or social related issue or benefit sharing, etc. So I understand the ICVCM, they set the quality, but the price will be determined determined at the market. So from that point of view, I think maybe price will be vary program by program, project type, and project by project. So many different price will be there. But at the very beginning of the start of the constellation, the ICVCM, the many market players expected the voluntary market to be commodity market, something like a commodity market, ton every ton. That was the expectation. And yesterday, the US, the commodity authority commented on the future future commodity, voluntary credit to be commodity. So how do you think about the price in general? So this is a question to Pedro, but I expected Verra's comment too. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Takashi, for that. To be absolutely clear, we, in the ICVCM, we have not had any kind of discussions around pricing or what should a CCP labeled credit get as price. We obviously have people that are looking at things like what is the current perception of the CCP and what the premium would be, but we don't really discuss price. In terms of theory of change, and I sometimes find it very interesting because there's almost a tension between some people who think, well, the market needs scale, therefore it should be commodified. What we need is standardization, a single label, so the CCP that that cuts across all of the the VCS and the different units. There's that tension, and then there's a tension on the buy side that there are a number of buyers that actually want different types of credits. They want those added benefits for various reasons, whether it's because their ESG policy or even because they might think that somehow that correlates with reputational risk, put it this way. I actually don't think so these are seen as contradictions. Personally, I don't see them as contradictions. I see that I hope we will see more and more commodification of, let's say, base quality, and base quality means CCP label credits when they become available at scale and volume. And I hope to see standardized contracts on those, and hopefully exchange-based contracts, and more sophistication in those types of instruments. And that, in my brain at least, can coexist with a different type of market, which is looking for more like a bespoke type of product. To give you an example, when we're discussing the ICVCM, one thing that has happened is we've had really interesting cooperation with the ratings agencies. We just had a panel with them. But at some point, there was this kind of concern from the ratings agencies, well, there's so much talk about commodification, and in a commodified market, what is the role for ratings agencies? Well, they do exist, don't they? They exist in rating other products than carbon, and yet we do have standardized contracts for the types of things that ratings agencies currently are working. So I don't see them as two distinct, incompatible theories of change in the market.
Rachel's getting her steps in today.
Thank you. Everett Salas, Chevron, and I wanted to follow up on something that Pedro and Derek, you both have addressed, which is the demand side of this, right? So we're thinking about integrity and thinking about bringing integrity back to the supply side, but ultimately this is still a voluntary exercise. And so while this is happening, you have things like Oxford Principles, SBTI, the Claims Code of Practice, right? CDP coming out with constraints on how you're able to use this. So just kind of thinking about a small, medium enterprise, what's the value proposition if this is really relegated to more of a philanthropy? And do you believe that by bringing integrity back, can we maybe address some of the concerns that might have led to folks wanting to constrain how we use these?
Couldn't hear very well.
Thanks for the question, Everett. Were you directing that at a specific panelist?
No, to anybody that has a view on this.
Can you repeat the question? Because I couldn't hear very well.
Did you catch the question?
I think I heard part of it, hopefully, correct me if I'm wrong, that the question in part was if purchases of voluntary credits are now somewhat philanthropic rather than targeted toward a particular claim, which seems to have been the theme of the last year, right? I think the questioner was asking then, does standardization and does the quality initiative, the CCP label, perhaps bring back the ability to make the claims? You know, is that correct?
Yeah, that gets to the gist of it, right? Like, if you address the integrity, do you guys believe that maybe that would address some of the concerns that have led to this action to try to constrain how these products are used? And so then you would be allowed to use them in a wider range, which makes them more liquid and sort of leads to a more robust market.
I can't hear anything.
Yeah, it's very, sorry, I'll attempt an answer, even though I'm not sure that I got the entire gist. I would, so let's separate out supply and demand. What I said before, let's paint a scenario where we correct all of these integrity, quality issues from the supply side. Would that have a positive impact or enhance the ability of increasing the demand? Yes, it would. I think that's it's almost a precondition. But coming back to my point previously, I don't think this is the sole condition. And you're absolutely right. The worst thing that is happening right now is that we are seeing the voluntary carbon market dwindle to being motivated, demand that is motivated really by philanthropy or action that is in the hall of good deeds. That can only mobilize that much finance. If we can take that away from just that narrow pot of philanthropy to much bigger pot that is dedicated to sustainability and moving towards almost, I would say, a quasi-compliance mindset in terms of corporate purchasing, then we would have really scaled this up and make a meaningful contribution to fighting against climate change. So it starts with absolutely improving the transparency in terms of the supply, the quality, initiatives like, it's a whole ecosystem. It's not just the ICVCM and CCP label, but it's this plus the ratings, plus all of that. That's all good. It won't be enough on its own. But hopefully there are enough, even on the demand side, the VCMI Scope 3 flexibility and a couple of other things that have happened over the last few months, again, give me hope to believe that we will also be able to solve that demand side. So that we can bring it to a bigger scale.
They're certainly linked. Yeah, thank you. Benoît or Derek, did you have any other comments on how quality of supply is linked to extra demand use cases?
I mean, it certainly helps having higher quality and being able to add these additional co-benefits. I think, again, it kind of comes back to finding ways where we can incentivize the private sector to really want to engage in this market. And with some of the developments that have happened recently, it's kind of why we're hearing a lot about this pause and this hesitation and engaging. And I'm hopeful that CCP and other initiatives are going to continue to help build back the confidence in the demand side of the market. And I also agree with Pedro, we're going to need to see some additional work done by all of our partners in this space to bring this further.
Yeah, there's a lot that needs to be done on rebuilding that trust for buyers, and hopefully the CCP labels will help with that. Thank you for the question. Any other questions?
There's one with.
Rachel, we have one at the front here. It is so bright up here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. This is largely going to be a question for Benoît. My name is Shannon Smith. I work for Chestnut Carbon. We're a forest-based carbon developer, and we are exclusively focused on carbon credits. And our IFM program is registered with Verra. And currently, Verra doesn't have a tag that distinguishes avoidance from removal. And we've asked that that tag be developed. And we're told that that is not the most critical thing that Verra is innovating on right now. So I'm curious whether, as you look across the buyer community and what is important to them, do you agree with that differentiating avoidance and removal is not the most critical thing? And if so, what do you think, as Verra is innovating with respect to the buyers, what do you think is the most important next feature of kind of your registry?
Thank you. A really interesting question. I'd have to give it some more thought in terms of where that would rank in terms of priority. I mean, there's definitely a lot of really big and exciting opportunities that need to be addressed first. I have heard on multiple occasions discussions around creating labels that identify credits as specifically being avoidance or reduction or removal, excuse me. And so I'm not sure where those discussions have led to at this very point in time, but I'd be happy to follow up. I know that, yeah, anything that we could do to meet what the buyer's needs are that can help with them reaching their goals as outlined by their policies would be certainly of interest for us. In terms of what priorities, in terms of what we can, I think one part of your question was asking what are some of our highest priorities right now in terms of what we can bring to the market that will help with buyer demand. I know that a lot, well, I'm excited to share that, like, I mean, as many of you already know, we've applied to the CCP assessment, and we're excited to see the results. And so this is one development that we think is going to definitely, this has been one of our high priority items to answer that question. And we're also continuing to look at ways in which we can bring more data to the market in a more accessible manner. While we have, so much information is available on our registry, we want that to be more readily consumable. And so this is also a really exciting development for us because we see how that can also help facilitate greater transactions and understanding and assessments of this space. And happy to continue the conversation after.
Thank you for the question. Any others from the audience? Yes, there's one right behind you. Lovely.
Hi, Brad with ACR. There was a report out yesterday from We Mean Business that in coded language pointed at SBTI as a huge barrier for use of carbon credits and actually quantified the scale of that barrier. I'm not necessarily asking you to respond to the report, but I'm curious if any of you have thoughts on how we might, I see SBTI's move towards beyond value chain as a step in the right direction, but probably not a sufficient step. This is speaking personally. Any thoughts on how to get them to take maybe another dozen or two steps?
A lot of them. Sorry, maybe I can take that on. At EDF, we had been hoping, so just first of all, full disclosure, I was at one point in time part of the expert advisory group of the net zero standard at SBTI, and we still have somebody that works in the technical, well, not works, we have a representation in the technical media of SBTI. We were hoping that SBTI the guidance that would come out, the VCM guidance, would clarify for both VCMI and ICVCM what put it this way, it's the linchpin of this ecosystem, in my view. At least I had several presentations where I saw this as a triangle. Somebody deals with the targets, somebody deals with the claims, and somebody deals with the quality of supply. Unfortunately, I think what happened there in that report, and this is my reading, is that you have very good explanation up front why beyond value chain mitigation is critical, which is a step in the right direction in terms of the argumentation. But then the proposed actions to be endorsed by SBTI fall way short of what is needed. So we don't have validation for a BVCM, and we don't have a real clarity about what is the intended goal of BVCM. So I think, coming to what are the next steps, I don't want to be too negative about SBTI, but I think we need to have something else besides SBTI to complement that. SBTI have done a tremendously good job at target setting and at promoting the concept that companies have to set long-term targets. They have not given the rest of the ecosystem, however, enough clarity around interim targets and the use of carbon credits, if any, towards those interim targets. So we need somebody to pick up that piece of work, somebody credible, and give that clarity to the market, so that NGOs like EDF and others in this ecosystem in general can say, that's the way to go. This is something that is ambitious yet practical, and that incentivizes near-term action. That would be my response. Sorry.
Yeah, I would echo that. SBTI does a great job helping companies set targets. We don't think they go far enough in encouraging the use of carbon credits. It's an immediately available tool. Corporates need to be using them. Thank you for the question. We have time for one more. Or are we all in a food coma after lunch? Fair. Okay, well, thank you for those questions. Thank you to the Reserve and the team for making this happen. And please join me in thanking our esteemed panelists.